Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our group learning program, and I'm going to be sharing with you chapter 14 from our book. This is titled Cultivating Healthy Mental States, Loving-kindness, Compassion, Sympathetic Joy, and Equanimity. This is where you're going to learn about these 4 healthy mental states and how they can antidote certain symptoms in your mind. This is where the Buddha gets the reputation of almost being like a doctor, that there's certain symptoms and then you apply a prescription. And you are your own best doctor. So if you understand the wisdom of what are the symptoms that you experience and then how to apply this prescription, you can actually apply that and see that you can eliminate some of these unwholesome mental qualities through practicing these 4 healthy mental states. We're going to start with meditation just like we do with all of our classes. I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. Then I'm going to come in with some guidance. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we're going to come out with some more chanting from there. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand this topic of the 4 healthy mental states. If you'd like to join, you're more than welcome to join in on the chanting, and then I'll come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Roka Vitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes. And start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. Either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here as well as online. Welcome to everyone. Today's class is all about helping you guys to understand the 4 healthy mental states that are going to help you to cultivate the mind with loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are 4 mental states that can actually eliminate certain symptoms that you will have in your mind. In order to make your way to this enlightened mental state where the mind's completely peaceful and joyful, there's multiple teachings that you're going to need to be able to learn and understand. And the Eightfold Path is the core central teaching that you would need to be able to learn and work with that to be able to commit it to your memory and then practice it on a day-to-day basis. And once you've learned that, then you start kind of branching out and learning other teachings that connect into that. So with that being the core central teaching, there's other things that integrate into it. And this is something that integrates into the Eightfold Path. These are 4 healthy mental states or wholesome mental states that you can cultivate in order to gradually train the mind to eliminate certain symptoms that we're going to be talking about. As I was mentioning at the beginning, this is where the Buddha oftentimes gets the reputation of being like a doctor, because there's certain symptoms in your mind and there's a certain prescription that you can apply. But if you don't understand the wisdom of how to do that, you're not going to be able to do it. So that's what the Buddha is giving you the wisdom of, is helping you to be able to understand what did he do in order to get to enlightenment. And then once he figured it out for himself, he just spent the rest of his life helping other people understand that. So then you can cultivate that wisdom through learning, reflecting, and practicing, training your mind to be able to experience the same mental state. So I'm going to share some teachings with you guys here on these 4 healthy mental states, and I'm going to pause a few times and open up for questions that you guys might have. As you guys know here, if you guys could use the microphones, they're over there by the bookshelf. I think you guys know how to use them. You just press the gray button, the lights come on, you can hold it up to your chin. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or in Zoom you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So During the lifetime of the Buddha, they refer to what I'm going to teach you here as the Brahma-viharas. And you might even hear people refer to it that way today. So I'm going to explain to you guys the history of this term Brahma-viharas, because you'll hear people refer to it that way sometimes, and you'll know what they're talking about. I refer to these as the 4 healthy mental states because that's how the Buddha taught them. But because they were referred to as the Brahma-viharas during the lifetime of the Buddha, the people refer to it that way, and even nowadays they refer to it that way for some people. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were individuals who were called Brahmin, and they exist today too. We might refer to a Brahmin as a Hindu priest. This individual, the way that they teach it is that they've been born into a family, and this particular family is like 15% of society in India, where they're considered to be holy people because you've been born into that family. And now what everybody else was taught is that you have to go to these people in order to get them to do rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship and prayer for you, and you're supposed to pay them a fee. And when you pay them a fee and they're doing their rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer, you're supposed to go home and your life's going to get better, right? So the Buddha understood that this isn't actually true. This isn't how your life improves. But nonetheless, people were doing that during that time frame. And they would refer to them as Brahmin because they were practicing Brahmanism. And nowadays we might call it Hinduism, right? Well, the Buddha came in and he taught what he taught, which is to cultivate wisdom, to train the mind, to eliminate these pollutions. And it's your decisions and your wise decisions that's going to lead to wholesome results, not rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. So these people were doing a lot of those rituals and ceremonies, but these Brahmin were also teaching a certain amount of other teachings too, around like moral conduct and things like this. So the Brahmin were teaching the Brahma-viharas. They were teaching what I would refer to as 4 healthy mental states. So this word Brahma-vihara, where it comes from, is the Brahmin were teaching people how to get close to God, right? That was part of their teachings. And this word Brahma means God. And the word Vihara means like a dwelling or an abode or to reside, right? So these Brahma-viharas are referred to in that way because the Brahmin were teaching them that, hey, if you would like to get close to God, you're going to need to practice these Brahma-viharas. Well, the Buddha didn't teach it that way. He didn't teach that your ultimate goal is to get close to God. If that's what you would like to do, sure, you can learn how to have a better and better relationship with God, but that's not part of what the Buddha was really teaching as part of the path to enlightenment, because it's not God that determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that determine that. So the Buddha didn't put God at the center of his teachings. He put you at the center of his teachings because it's you that needs to learn and practice and train your mind. But nonetheless, some people still refer to this as the Brahma-viharas. But when you hear me teach it, I'm going to refer to them as the 4 healthy mental states typically, because that's really what they are. There's these 4 healthy mental states that's going to help you to antidote certain symptoms in the mind. So I'm going to walk you through this and helping you understand what they are. So this first one is called loving-kindness. This is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, having goodwill towards all beings, without judgment. This is the antidote for anger, hatred, ill will, and all the lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, bitterness, hostility, even the slightest dislike. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. Right now, you probably like certain people and you probably dislike certain people. But that's because these people over here that you like, they're meeting your expectations. They're doing things your way. These people over here that you don't like, that's because they're not meeting your expectations. You want them to be a certain way. And the mind has this craving for permanence, thinking that everybody should be a certain way. And now if people meet those criteria that you have in your mind, you like them. But if they don't meet those criteria, then you dislike them. But you can get rid of this through training the mind to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, which many of you guys that have been in this group learning program for a while, you already understand what that is. But also, you're going to need to eliminate your anger, hatred, ill will, your bitterness, your hostility. That's going to help you to eliminate this dislike, this annoyance, this frustration, and of course, the stronger versions of that too. So the way that you get rid of that stuff is through cultivating loving kindness in your mind, having a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards all beings without judgment. Because sometimes what the mind will do is it'll judge somebody and try to determine whether they deserve your love or not, or whether they deserve you being kind to them. That's not the way that an enlightened being functions. Sometimes you might have been taught in your growing up, in your childhood, that some people say, well, don't respect others until they respect you. Right? If everybody was practicing this, like, don't respect others until they respect you. If somebody was like, well, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. And then they're going to say, well, I'm not going to respect you until you respect me. So that means nobody's respecting anybody because everybody's waiting for somebody to respect you, right? Well, if you did that with your love and your kindness, and by the way, that's unwise to do that with your respect. It's also unwise for you to do that with your love and your kindness too. Because if it's like, well, I'm not going to be loving and kind to you until you're loving and kind with me. Well, I'm not going to be loving and kind with you until you're loving and kind with me, right? So now nobody's being loving and kind with anybody. So an enlightened being doesn't function that way. They break through all of that because they understand that whatever you put out, that's what's going to come back to you. So if you put out love and kindness, this is what's going to come back to you. But if you put out bitterness and harshness and hostility, that's what's going to come back to you. So you're not interested in judging whether this person deserves your loving kindness or not. You would like to just be loving and kind and realize that some people are going to be loving and kind and some people are not. This is impermanence. You're not going to live in a world where everybody is loving and kind. It's just not going to happen because that's permanence. You're going to encounter people sometimes that are bitter and harsh and hostile and impolite and disrespectful. And you can train your mind to not be shaken up and not be angry or frustrated during that period of time. But if you have expectations and cravings the way that you want people to be, when they're not that way, you will be angry, you will be frustrated, and your mind isn't understanding impermanence here. So there's a certain amount of work that you need to do with the Eightfold Path to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations, craving for things to be permanent. But you also need to go in and eliminate the anger, hatred, and ill will. Because when that is arising, the mind's going to tend to be unskillful. It's going to push people away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you're going to put your expectations on people and try to control them. And people might be doing this to you too. And this doesn't solve your problem, because by pushing people away, you can see that that doesn't solve your problem because you still get annoyed, you still get frustrated. If that was the true cause of your problem, when you push those people away, you'd be peaceful and joyful. Or if you were bitter, harsh, and hostile to people, you can't fear people into doing things your way. It's just not going to happen. And that's what the mind's trying to do when it's being bitter, harsh, and hostile. And when you're putting your expectations on people and trying to pressure them or force them to do things your way, you can't train 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. So this actually is just going to lead to broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship. And you can't live with all beings harmoniously. Because if you can only enjoy being around people and you can only be harmonious with people who do things your way, there's only one person in the world that you can love. If you can only love people who do things your way, because there's only one person who does things your way in the entire world, and it's you, right? So if you can only love people who do things your way, then you can really only love one person, yourself. And you might even have a difficult time doing that from time to time, right? Depending on what's going on in your mind. Sometimes people have difficulties loving themselves. So this loving kindness that you permeate in the mind and you get to the point where you have love and kindness for everybody and all beings, you also have that towards yourself as well, to eliminate that negative inner dialogue, that degrading, diminishing inner dialogue or self-talk that you might have. Some people have that. You can eliminate that. You don't have to walk around with that. And then when you learn how to love this being more, you'll learn how to love other beings. And then when you can put out love and kindness towards all beings, then you'll experience more and more love and kindness coming back to you. Because your intentions, your speech, and your actions are going to emanate from your mind, right? The mind is almost like a computer. It's like a CPU that a computer, the CPU is the central processing unit. And if the central processing unit is working and it's going well, then the computer functions well. But if it's not going well, then it's not going to function well. The keyboard, the monitor, the mouse, all these things aren't going to work so well. So your mind in this being who you are is the same way that your mind is the CPU for this being. And everything's emanating from your mind, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. So if you can transform your mind to get rid of this anger, hatred, this hostility, this resentment, this bitterness, now your mind can have loving kindness, and your intention, speech, and actions can emanate from that. So the way that you cultivate this loving kindness in the mind is through developing a meditation practice of loving kindness. And I've taught that in this program already, and I teach it in other courses and retreats as well, and I've recorded it many times, so you can learn loving kindness meditation. It's different than what we did today. It's a different type of meditation where you're essentially rewiring the mind to be loving and kind. And now you can go out in the world and be loving and kind through your intentions, speech, and actions. And that's where the real transformation is occurring. You can't meditate your way to the elimination of anger. It's not possible. So when you're meditating, it's like filling up your gas tank. And then you go out into the world through your intentions, speech, and actions and be loving and kind. And that's where the real transformation is occurring. Sometimes in the unenlightened state, when we lack wisdom and our relationships are challenging, we think the way to solve this is to fix the other person. And that's usually what the mind's trying to do, is fix the outside world and fix other people. But that doesn't actually work, because you can't change other people. You need to change your own mind. So when you focus on improving what your mind is experiencing, now you'll improve the way you interact with people on a day-to-day basis. And that's what's going to transform your relationships. So for example, when I was growing up, I had a lot of anger and bitterness and hostility and resentment towards my mom, because I had so many expectations of her growing up as a child, and she didn't meet those expectations. So I had a lot of bitterness towards her. When we were together, it was only a matter of time before fireworks went off between the two of us, right? And it was like that all the way through my early 20s even. But there was a certain point in time where I became wise to how things were happening, and I was interested in changing, and I decided to transform my mind. And I was starting to train with this loving kindness meditation, rewiring the mind. And then when I would spend time with her, I would be loving and kind to her. Where before, when she was bitter and harsh and hostile to me, I would be bitter and harsh and hostile right back. And this just kept on going on for years and years and years. It was like mom would pick up the rubber ball of anger and throw it around the room, and I would pick up the rubber ball of anger and throw it around the room. And next thing you know, we got all these rubber balls bouncing around in the room. But then when I started training my mind with loving kindness meditation, I started doing this differently. When mom started being bitter and harsh and hostile with me, maybe we were on the phone, I would say things like, "Mom, I know that I've been bitter and harsh with you in the past, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I love you so much. I apologize for what I did in the past. I'm going to get off the phone and let you think about what it is that you just said, and we'll talk another time, Mom. I love you. Bye-bye." Where she didn't get that before. Before, when she was bitter and harsh and hostile, she would get bitterness and harsh and hostility back. So she couldn't see her own mind and what was going on with her own mind. But as she started being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and she was getting this love and this kindness back, more and more she could see that it was her mind that was having these challenges and that she needed to address that. So sometimes we didn't talk for 3 months or 6 months after that. And then I would talk to her again, and we would be talking on the phone, and maybe a few months would go by, and she would be bitter, harsh, and hostile. And I would do the same thing. "Mom, I love you so much. I'm sorry for what I did in the past. That was really unwise of me. I'm going to get off the phone. Our relationship is really important to me, and I would like to get to the point where we're no longer bitter and harsh with each other. You take care, Mom. Have a wonderful day. I love you. Bye-bye." And she was like surprised, that this was happening, because that's not the way she experienced this relationship before. So me and Mom had like a log jam, and then I had to take out this log of anger and bitterness and hostility and all these expectations so that things could flow. Another way that you can think about this is that, we have this well-worn path of anger in the unenlightened state, and the grass is worn out, the bushes are pushed back. You go down this path many, many times. When somebody does something that you don't like, this anger comes up, and you go down this well-worn path of bitterness and harshness and hostility. And you know where that leads. It leads to broken relationships, right? That's where that leads. But what you start to learn is how unwise it is to be angry. And you start learning how it's your own mind that is causing this anger to arise. And what you do with the loving kindness meditation and going out into the world and be loving and kind, it's like getting out a machete and creating a new path. And you're breaking through these bushes and you're breaking through these stickers. And this old path starts to get growing back. But it's really challenging going down this new path because your mind's not used to it, right? You haven't been down this path of loving kindness very much. So you got to get out your machete and create a new path. But while you're doing that and you're working through that challenge, this old path becomes overgrown. And now when somebody does something that you disagree with, you can love the person while disagreeing with their choices and decisions. Right? You got to separate these two things, that you don't see this as one and the same. It's two separate things. That you can disagree with your parents' choices and decisions. You can disagree with your boss or your coworkers or any other people. You can disagree with their choices and decisions that you wouldn't choose to do it that way, but they have, and that's their choice. And now you can just have a genuine interest in seeing the person be well while disagreeing with the choices and decisions. So now you can go down this path of loving kindness, and more your mind is used to going down this path. In this one, your mind doesn't even look to it anymore because it's overgrown. You're no longer even going down that path. You don't even consider going down that path because you know how unwise it is to go down that path. So you transform the mind with the loving kindness meditation. Typically, you're doing that in the morning. This is a wise time to do that, but it doesn't mean you can't do it in the evening or in the afternoon. You can do it then too. But in the morning, it's really nice to do loving kindness meditation. So you go out into the world and all your conversations and your interactions full of loving kindness permeating in the mind so that your intention, speech, and actions can have love and kindness. But then also, from the Eightfold Path, you need to practice right mindfulness, which is awareness of mind, and you need to apply right effort. Right effort is where you apply the effort to eliminate unwholesome qualities and arise wholesome qualities. So that if you've done your meditation in the middle of the day or in the morning or wherever you've done it, and now you go out into the world, and as you're going through your day-to-day activities, if you're noticing with your mindfulness or awareness of mind that there's any anger or bitterness or hostility or frustration or agitation or annoyance or even the slightest dislike towards others, you notice that as a symptom. There's that anger, there's that frustration, there's that agitation or annoyance. You notice that with your mindfulness or your awareness of mind. Well, when you see that symptom, that unwholesome quality, you know what the wholesome quality is that's going to antidote that, which is the loving kindness, this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, this active goodwill towards others without judgment. So now you bring that in, and that squashes the anger, right? So let's just say you show up to an airport, you're planning to go on this flight, and you show up and you're checking in at the ticket counter. The person at the ticket counter says, "Oh, your flight is delayed. It's going to be 2 hours late." And you notice this frustration coming up, right? You know it's your own mind craving permanence. You want every plane to take off on time, and that's just not possible because these planes are going to be late sometimes because of weather issues, crew issues, maintenance issues. And you notice the anger coming up, and you notice that with your mindfulness, and you would be bitter and harsh and hostile. What do you mean my plane? No, you don't do that. Right? You know what the antidote here is, and putting out the bitterness and hostility is just going to produce unwholesome dhamma or unwholesome results for you. So instead, with your mindfulness and your awareness of mind of that anger coming up, you apply right effort, cut that off and let it go. And now you bring in the loving kindness. Thank you so much for letting me know. I did not realize my flight's going to be 2 hours late. Is there any restaurants around that you would recommend? Right? Maybe I'll get a bite to eat while I'm waiting for my airplane, right? You can be loving and kind to this person because being bitter and harsh and hostile to that person isn't going to change anything about your flight, right? Your flight's still going to be delayed, right? So where you see the symptom of anger and bitterness and hostility arising with your mindfulness, you apply the antidote. or the prescription, which is loving kindness. And if you've been doing loving kindness meditation regularly throughout your weeks and days and months, then you'll have it readily available to you to apply. But if you're not doing the loving kindness meditation, you're not going to have that available to you to be able to apply it in this situation. And now over time, you will fully stamp out this anger and this bitterness out of the mind. You'll get to the point where you don't have any anger. It'll be physically impossible for you to ever experience anger because it's just not in the mind anymore. It just isn't there because you've completely eradicated it. So this is how you do it with loving kindness meditation, going out into the world through your intentions, speech, and actions, being loving and kind. Use your mindfulness to guard the mind, to look over the mind. And anytime you see these unwholesome qualities arising, you apply right effort to bring in the loving kindness. Then there's compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. This is a mental quality that when you see other people having misfortune, that you have concern for them. The opposite sides of this is one side would be indifference, where you could care less what happens to somebody. You see someone that's homeless, you see a child that needs food, you see somebody addicted to drugs. So what? It's not my family. I don't care. Right? That would be indifference. And that's not going to produce a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life. But the other side of this is the worry, the anxiety. Oh my goodness, that child doesn't have food. Oh my gosh, did you see they didn't even have any clothes? Their clothes were all ripped and torn and all dirty. Oh my gosh, right? The mind's so worried and having anxiety and stress about that. Either side, your mind's not in the middle. You're not content. So the middle way here is to come to the middle with compassion, where you can have concern for the misfortune of others. Now, whether you choose to do something about that thing is a whole separate question, right? What the Buddha is teaching you to do is to have this mental state of compassion, which is the concern for the misfortune of others. And one of the things that he teaches you that helps you to cultivate this is he teaches that because we've all had so many different lives and so many different experiences in those lives in the past, he says that whenever you see somebody experiencing something unfortunate, he says you too have experienced that exact same thing, either in this life or some previous life. So when you see that homeless person there, it's kind of like, well, you were homeless at one time too, either in this life or some previous life. Or you see someone addicted to drugs or alcohol, you had that same experience either in this life or some previous life. So rather than being judgmental and looking down on them for their misfortune, put yourself in their shoes and realize that you were in that same position as well. And the other thing the Buddha teaches you is that he says, because we've all had so many countless lives and previous lives, that he said it would be nearly impossible to encounter another being that hasn't previously been your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, or some other relative. So when you see that person who's sitting on the street that doesn't have food, that's like your dad or your uncle or your mother or your grandmother. Or you see that older lady behind the cashier at the store, that's your grandmother or your mother or your sister, right? These are people that you've encountered in the past, but just right now in this life, they're not one of your relatives. But you can start looking at every being as your relative, including animals. We were talking about cockroaches before class. We were talking about relocating them outside, right? Because there's just a few of them, right? So viewing those cockroaches as your son or your daughter or your brother or your sister or your grandmother or grandfather, this is a great way to arise compassion in your mind, as well as loving kindness as well. So whether you choose to take action upon this misfortune that this person is experiencing is a whole separate topic. But I'll share with you some details about this where I have done action behind this to help you understand that it's never going to be always one way or always another way, but also to help you understand that this is a mental quality, that it's not about the action behind it. So I used to ride a motorbike, and when I would ride a motorbike, sometimes I would see people get in accidents because there's a lot of motorbikes here in Thailand. And typically when I would see an accident, I'd pull over to the side of the road, put the kickstand down, and go help this person, because I learned some first aid and things like this when I was in the USA, so I can kind of help people with some of these things. So I would kind of go help these people, right? Well, there were some times when I'd be riding down the road and I would stop and I would help them. But then there were other times where I'd be riding down the road and I would see an accident and I would look And maybe I'm on my way home in order to give my son some food, because maybe my son is at home by himself. He's been at home maybe all day by himself and he doesn't have any food. And I've got some food that I'm bringing to him, probably a pizza, because he usually asks for pizza, right? So I'm probably taking him a pizza. And then I look and I see that there's an accident. Okay, well, now I have compassion. I have concern for the misfortune of this being. Just like I did when I stopped to help these people, I have compassion for them, and then I choose to put action behind it. But now as I'm driving and I look and I see the accident, I see 2 or 3 people already helping them, right? I still have compassion here. I have concern for their misfortune, but I realize like, hey, they already have help. Let me just continue on my way and go take this pizza to my son because I need to help him to get some food. And that's compassion for him, right? So there's still compassion here for this being that had an accident with the motorbike, but I'm not choosing to do anything about it. So your compassion is just a mental state that you're going to be cultivating and maintaining, but it doesn't mean you're going to put action behind it. So in that situation where I didn't help the motorbike, there was still compassion, but I just chose not to do anything about it. So your compassion is going to help you to get out of that indifference where you could care less about what happens to people, and it's going to help you get out of that worry and anxiety. So when I went forward with my motorbike and went home, I wasn't worried about that person that had an accident. I wasn't having anxiety or stress. I wasn't thinking, oh my goodness, what happened to them? Are they going to be okay? I didn't worry about it because there was just concern there. But I also wasn't indifferent. I looked to see, do you have any help? Oh, there's already 2 or 3 people that stopped and helped them. No need for me to stop. Right? So this is where your mind can now come to the middle and you can be peaceful and joyful and continue on your day. So the way that you cultivate this compassion is the loving kindness is going to help you with some compassion, and the loving kindness meditation is going to help you with that. But the main way that you cultivate your compassion is with your mindfulness and your right effort, just like with loving kindness, that you practice awareness of mind with your mindfulness. And anytime you see indifference or anytime you see worry and anxiety about somebody's misfortune, you cut that off and let it go. Bring the mind to the middle where you arise this compassion, which is the concern for the misfortune of others. So you're going to need your mindfulness to be developed. That's why you do breathing mindfulness meditation on a consistent, regular basis. So you have awareness of your mind. And if at any point during your day, you're noticing this worry or anxiety or this indifference, you cut that off, let it go, and apply right effort to now bring in the wholesome quality, which is the compassion. So if I was on my motorbike and I was driving past that person who had an accident and, down the road, I started noticing this worry or anxiety come up, I would have cut that off and let it go and brought in compassion. Or if I noticed indifference in the mind, I would have cut that off and let it go and brought in the compassion, right? So these are the first 2, loving kindness and compassion. I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have questions. Remember, you guys can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. And then here at the temple, you guys have the microphones there if you'd like to ask any questions. So you guys have any questions on this first 2, loving kindness and compassion?
Hello. Yeah. So my question is, for example, in cases of like safety, like let's say like robberies, or if you live in places that this is very common, how do you do to practice that compassion and not be also in fear? Because sometimes you tend to be kind of paranoid because you don't want to be robbed or attacked or something.
Yeah, so anytime you have any discontent feelings arising, it's always from craving, desire, attachment. That's the mind craving permanence. So you're going to need to be able to eliminate cravings to be able to not have the fear. And if you're making wise decisions about where you go and what you're doing, there's a good chance that you won't experience being robbed. Because, like, for example, let's just say somebody doesn't understand these teachings, and let's just say they go out at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, they're going to a nightclub, there's alcohol and drugs there, the bar closes at 2 a.m. in the morning. and now you're spilling out onto the street and you get robbed, right? So there was a whole lot of decisions that led to that. It wasn't just one decision. There was multiple decisions that if you understand these teachings, you understand it's unwise to be in that kind of environment. And that's what's leading to you getting robbed now. So by you making decisions to not go do those types of things, you'll automatically not experience being robbed. But if you are experiencing that, you need to eliminate the craving for permanent safety. You need to eliminate the craving for permanent comfort of this body. You need to eliminate the craving to keep all your material possessions permanently, because there's 5 things that you can't attain no matter how enlightened you are. You can't eliminate sickness, aging, death, loss, and destruction. You're going to experience these 5 things. No matter how enlightened you are, you'll experience sickness, aging, death, loss, and destruction. But you can get to a point where you're not shaken up by it, where you don't have a craving to hold on to everything so tightly. If somebody comes and says, hey, give me all your money. Okay, here you go. Take it. It's yours. Enjoy. Right? No need to fight that person. Let them go. Right? So you can get to a point, but you need to use the Eightfold Path to eliminate all your cravings. Just having compassion isn't going to be able to allow you to eliminate the fear. Okay. I don't see any other questions anywhere. Okay. Oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Yes, it actually ties in a little bit to, sorry, I forgot your name. Lucas said. So, if these misfortunes happen, and okay, we can assume that we were at the wrong place at the wrong time, but can we, if we are enlightened enough, can we still feel loving kindness for the person that has hurt us? And let's say very edge case, someone who's done something really bad, okay? Like people who kill, who, torture.
Yeah.
Can the person actually have that level of compassion for and feel loving kindness for that type of soul?
That type of person, yeah. You will still have loving kindness and compassion for them. So another person could harm this physical body, right? There's that type of harm that they could cause. They could cause harm to your material possessions. They could cause harm to your reputation. These are all things that are harms that someone could cause you. But someone else can't cause you to experience anger or guilt or shame or fear or any of these other things. It's not possible. This is being caused by your own mind. So when you were saying, if someone's hurting you, if someone's physically hurting this body, you could still have loving kindness for that being. It doesn't mean you let them to do it, right? That's not what loving kindness is, but you can still have this loving kindness. So if someone came and tried to attack this being physically, I would try to get away from that harm by causing the least amount of harm as possible to that being. And that's my loving kindness and my compassion for that being. I wouldn't be able to be angry at that being because I understand that that being is only choosing to do that because of what's going on in their own mind. In these pollutions that the Buddha discovered, this person was unfortunate that they weren't able to ever learn these teachings. So they're choosing to attack this being and try to cause this being physical harm. And you might actually cause harm back, but that's only to stop the harm that's coming to you. And that's the dhamma of that being. But you wouldn't have anger and frustration in that situation. Yeah.
Can I have one question?
Yeah, your mic turned off for some reason. You can ask as many questions as you like.
Please. How does actually Buddhism see mental disorders and personality disorders? Because is it possible for everybody to achieve the state of enlightenment? Because let's say I have some people in my life that are diagnosed with personality disorders, and they are, I believe, in a great pain because of the anger and distress they're experiencing.
Yeah.
And the Western medicine will tell you this is basically the permanent state, and this is like a life sentence.
Yeah.
And I find it a little bit hard to believe that this person just for the rest of their lives will have to suffer and they cannot step out of their anger.
Yeah.
Is maybe like a karmic debt or something, or is it, can they still learn with these steps to maybe have more compassion and understanding?
Yeah, the short answer to your question is yes. to give you a little bit more detail on that, is that what's happening here is that Western medicine is not understanding the human mind. Western medicine is typically treating the brain. And the brain and the mind are two different things. The brain is the physical organ, where the mind is non-physical. It's non-tangible. There's a connection between the two, but they're not the same thing. So as long as someone has the ability to learn intellectually, then they can actually train their mind to get to enlightenment. But there are some beings in this world, human beings, that their mind is such that they can't learn. They don't have the faculty to be able to learn, which means they could either attain enlightenment at death, because it can also be attained at death, or they might be reborn in a future life, in another life, where they can actually then learn in that life to be able to get to enlightenment. But these things that people are calling disorders, I have a chapter in that first book, chapter 22, where I talk about mental health. And we're going to be discussing that in this program in about 8 weeks from now. So 2 months from now, we'll be talking about it, where Western medicine is misunderstood. They think that this is a biological problem. They think it's a defect of the brain. They think it's a problem with brain chemistry. And they're using chemicals to be able to tweak the brain. But if you never clean the mind, you're not going to be able to experience improvement. That's why people oftentimes go on medicines long term, and it never actually solves the problem. It just kind of mutes the mind and kind of suppresses what's going on in the mind. But if you clean the mind and you purify the mind with the teachings of the Buddha, people with depression, even things like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, ADHD, ADD, anorexia, bulimia, I mean, you name it, panic disorders, personality disorders, these are all things that can be explained through the teachings of the Buddha. And through training the mind with his teachings, you can eradicate all those symptoms that an individual is experiencing. So that's why I wrote about it in chapter 22, and I'm going to be teaching it in about 8 weeks from now. So you can read it in the book. You can watch where I've recorded it before, because I've taught it many times, or you can attend here or online when I teach chapter 22, because it's completely opposite of what you'll hear in Western medicine. Western medicine is going to say this is a permanent disorder. You're going to live with it for the rest of your life. You can't fix it, and you're just going to need to take these medicines for the rest of your life. And that's actually not true. You can actually train your mind, overcome the symptoms, and get to the point where the mind's completely stable and steady. But because in the Western world, there's such a lack of wisdom about these teachings, people don't know, even doctors, trained doctors, they don't understand that it's possible to fully eliminate your anger and frustration. But here in Asia, they understand that. And that's why you don't see a proliferation of mental health difficulties and challenges here in Asia, because people are training their mind essentially from birth. So you don't see a proliferation of mental health disorders here in Asia, because people have the tools and techniques that they need. They have the wisdom to be able to train their mind to not experience those things. You're welcome. Okay, I'm just looking one more time. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So we're going to move to the next two, which are sympathetic joy and equanimity. I'm going to do the same thing, explain to you guys what these are and then the symptoms and how to remedy it. So sympathetic joy is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of envy or jealousy. Sometimes the mind can even have pride when you accomplish certain things, or your children accomplish certain things. So you would like to be able to cultivate this sympathetic joy where you don't have this envy and jealousy, because that's a painful feeling that's going to degrade your ability to have peace and joy on a day-to-day basis. So you might actually have a certain amount of sympathetic joy in your mind. Like if you've traveled to a certain place, like maybe here in Thailand, if someone's traveled to Thailand and you heard one of your coworkers are going to go to Thailand and they're like, hey, I'm going to go to Thailand in 6 months. You might be like, oh, that's wonderful for you. I was in Thailand. You're going to have a great time. They have some wonderful mango and sticky rice, some great massages. You're going to really enjoy yourself in Thailand, right? And you have this joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it. But if you're at work and there's a certain promotion, a new job that opened up, and you apply for that job, and so do some of your coworkers, but let's just say your coworker gets that job and not you, you might have some envy and jealousy that arises. This is being caused by your craving, your desire, your longing, yearning for that more money, better title, nicer office, better responsibilities. You're craving and longing, yearning for that. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But since you didn't get what you wanted, your mind experienced the painful feelings. And now your coworkers walking around the office gloating, and having conceit, well, look at me, I got this new job, perhaps, right? Maybe that's what they're doing. And now you have this envy or this jealousy because you wanted it and you didn't get it, right? So the way that you solve that is with sympathetic joy. You need to use your mindfulness to watch over the mind. And whenever you see this envy or jealousy arising, you cut it off and let it go with your right effort. Eliminate the unwholesome quality of jealousy or envy, and then apply the right effort to bring in this sympathetic joy, where you have joy for others' success. So if this person walks by your desk and you're typing away, maybe you had your interview and you haven't heard back from the job, and this individual walks by and is like, hey, guess what? That new job that we all applied for? I got it. And you might notice your jealousy starting to arise, right? Because your mindfulness is there helping you to be able to see that. You need to cut that off and let it go. And maybe what you say to this person is, congratulations, I'm very pleased for you. That's wonderful for you. Right? And maybe that's all you can do. Maybe inwardly, you're still jealous. You're still envious. But maybe you could just get a smile out and maybe you could say, congratulations. I'm very pleased for you. Right? And over time, you'll gradually wear away the cravings, the desires, the attachments, the jealousy, and all of this because you're bringing in this sympathetic joy to be able to help you in this situation. Because being jealous and envious, it doesn't feel good. Right? And now it's going to damage your relationship with this coworker when you're interacting with them, and you're not interested in doing that. You would like to have healthy relationships with everyone around you. So wherever you see jealousy or envy arising, bring in the sympathetic joy. Maybe one of your neighbors got a new car and you see their new shiny car sitting in the driveway, and then they walk by and be like, hey, guess what? I got a new car. Oh, congratulations. I see it looks really beautiful. It's a really nice car. Congratulations. Right? Hey, maybe they have a nicer car than you. So what, right? You don't need to compare what they have versus what you have, right? Just enjoy the things that you have. Enjoy the life that you have. Don't have that longing, yearning just to be better than that person, right? So bring in this sympathetic joy where you have joy for their success, even though you didn't contribute to it. Hey, that car looks really nice. I'm sure your family's going to have a great time riding around in it. Wonderful. Congratulations to you, right? That's all you need to do and get rid of that envy and jealousy. Then there's equanimity. There's two pieces to the equanimity. There's mental calmness, composure, evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. And then there's treating everyone impartially and fairly. I'm going to explain the two different sides of this. So this mental calmness and composure, this evenness of temper, it's going to help eliminate the restlessness, the worry, the anxiety. It's going to help you get rid of all of that. Because what's going to happen is because of your cravings, desires, attachments, you're going to have situations where your mind's all shaken up. Like say you get a phone call that your mom's been in a terrible car accident and she's being rushed to the hospital in the back of an ambulance. If you hear that and you don't have equanimity, you might grab your car keys, jump in the car, race across town, and try to hurry up and get to the hospital. And with your mind all shaken up like that, you're not going to be making wise decisions. And now you might even get in a car accident yourself, right? That's not helping anybody. So the Buddha teaches you to have this calmness and composure, this evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations, because racing across town isn't helping anybody. If you get to the hospital in 10 minutes or you get there in 30 minutes, it's not going to make a bit of difference for mom, because mom's in the back of an ambulance with emergency medical technicians. She's about to arrive to a hospital with trained doctors and nurses and sophisticated equipment. That's exactly where she needs to be. You showing up to the hospital, 10 minutes or 30 minutes isn't going to change anything for mom. When you arrive to the hospital, you would like to be calm and composed, and you would like to arrive safely. So instead of being shaken up, when you notice with your mindfulness that your mind's shaken up, you need to bring in the equanimity. Because now if you can calmly make your way to the hospital, now when you arrive, you can talk to the doctors and nurses, find out what's going on, and start making some wise decisions to help mom. But if your mind's all shaken up when you get to the hospital, you're not going to be able to understand what they're sharing with you, and you're not going to be able to make wise decisions. Right? So when you're noticing with your mindfulness that your mind is shaken up, maybe it's mom's been in a car accident, maybe it's your children are having difficulties. Maybe you find out that your bank account is going up and down, or your investments, or maybe a tree falls on your house or something like this. Who knows? You're going to experience different things in your life. Again, with craving, desire, attachment being diminished and working to eliminate that, that's going to help you automatically. But you also need to practice equanimity. Whenever you see your mind shaken up, you're going to need to bring in this calmness and composure in those situations. So you apply your right effort, that where you see the mind shaken up, you cut that off and let it go, and you bring in the wholesome quality with your right effort of equanimity. So if you know the solution to the shaken up mind is equanimity, then you bring that in when you see that, right? So you might need to pause and think about this for a second. Oh, mom's in the ambulance. Oh, this is unfortunate. Okay, I need to make my way to the hospital. Let me get my keys. Let me make my way over there. I'm just going to take my time. No need to rush. And now you just gradually make your way to the hospital. Stay calm and stay composed, right? Because your mind shaken up isn't going to help anybody at all. So you'd like to maintain your calmness and composure at all times, because that's what's going to help you make wise decisions. And you're going to need to make wise decisions in order to experience wholesome results or wholesome karma. Then the other part of this is treating everyone impartially, or everyone fairly, equally. One of the things the Buddha is teaching you how to do is to have healthy relationships with everybody around you, that you can get to a point where you have harmonious relationships with everybody. And the way that he's helping you to do that is to first train your own mind, because you need to train your own mind. But then you also need to be able to navigate the world of unenlightened beings who aren't training their mind. Because if you understand the Four Noble Truths, that it's your own mind that causes these discontent feelings, not everybody else understands that. So let's just say you were in a work environment and you went to lunch and you bought 2 donuts for your 2 best friends back at the office. And then there's 6 other people who aren't getting donuts. When you bring those 2 donuts back for your best friends, those 6 other people, and they see that, they're going to get jealous. They're going to get envious, because they don't have sympathetic joy, right? Their mind's craving that donut. And now as their jealousy and envy arises, they're going to attribute those feelings to you. They're going to think you're the one who's causing those feelings. And now they're going to push you aside. They're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or they're going to put your expectations on you and try to control you and force you to do things their way. And this isn't the way that you would like to live life. So the Buddha teaches you to treat everyone fairly and equally. So if you're going to bring back donuts for everybody. Right? And if you work in a small office, you can probably do that. But if you work in a big office and there's like 300 people in the office, you probably can't buy 300 donuts. So what you do is maybe you buy 12 or 20 or however many you'd like to buy, and you put them in the conference room, and then you send out an email and you say, hey, everybody, I brought back donuts from lunch. You guys are more than welcome to have one. There's 20 of them in the conference room. Right? And now you send out that email to the entire office. Well, if I'm the 21st person who shows up in the conference room and there's no donuts there, well, that was my decision. Right? And now I can see like, okay, well, I didn't get the donut, right? Because I didn't come early. I waited, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and I came and there was no donuts. So now I can see this was my decision that led to this. But at least you're making it available to everybody. That's how you're treating everyone impartially. Or say you have children. Maybe you have multiple children. You would like to treat them all equally, and they're all fairly. If you're getting one child a pair of shoes, you might choose to get the other child a shirt or a pair of pants or some pair of shoes or something like this. This is going to make sure that everyone's being treated equally. When I was growing up, I had different experiences throughout my life. When I would go to my grandmother's house, for example, and it was my sister's birthday, my grandmother would also have gifts for me too. Not only did my sister get gifts for her birthday, but I would usually get a gift too as a toy. And now, wow, everybody's being treated equally. Or like when I was in 2nd grade, I was chewing gum one time, and my teacher said, David, do you have any gum for anybody else? And I was like, no, I just have a piece for myself. I'm chewing it. She's like, oh, you can't chew gum all by yourself. If you're going to chew gum in my class, you need to bring gum for everybody. And I said, oh, really? Okay. So then the next day I brought in gum for everybody, and I gave everybody a piece of gum, and then I was able to chew gum, right? So this was things that I was learning growing up as a child. So different people understand different aspects of these natural laws. So you would like to treat everybody equally. If you're an employer, if you're a parent, if you are a coworker, whatever it is that you're doing, you'd like to treat everybody equally and impartially, because that's going to protect your ability to have a healthy relationship with the people around you. Because if they get jealous and envious, they're causing it, but they don't know that. So you would like to navigate this world peacefully, where you're able to now practice in such a way that it's less likely that these people are going to get envious and jealous. Okay? So you use your mindfulness or awareness of mind and apply right effort to be able to rise this equanimity in the mind. Any questions on either of these two? Okay, go ahead, Paul.
David, yesterday I had a setback on my path. I was in the car with my wife coming back from getting an ice cream, and in order to do so, I had to cross the canal. Where we live, there's the canal that joins the Lake Erie to Lake Ontario, and to allow the ships to pass, and so there's locks every so many miles. And coming back, I chose the wrong lock. I went to a lock that I thought would be open. And generally it would be, but it wasn't. And got frustrated and turned the car around and drove to the next lock. And sure enough, that lock was also open. So again, the traffic was backed up. And so then I said, okay, then I'm going to go back to the first lock that I tried. I was very, very frustrated this whole episode. You hear me?
Yeah, your internet just froze up for a little bit.
Okay. I don't know so I was very frustrated through this whole episode of going between locks. And what I should have really done was just stay put. And of course, my wife reminded me of that, and even referred to you and your teaching, saying, I thought you were getting.
It's froze up again.
Follow the program, but of it because I got it. So, in spite of that,
Paul, it sounded like your internet's.
There's a way to make the effort.
Your internet's getting.
I was too stubborn.
Patchy here.
Okay, then David, I'll better ask somebody else. I guess my internet's not good enough where I am.
But you're hearing me okay?
I hear you fine.
Okay, so I got a good portion of what it is that you're sharing, so I'd like to share this with you, is that I wouldn't consider it that you've taken a step backwards in your journey to enlightenment, because this event that you experienced was insightful for you. You could see that you were impatient. You could see that you were having craving for things to be done a certain way, and you've cultivated more wisdom in the process. This is part of your practice, that you're not perfect today, right? Because it's not about being perfect today. It's about learning and growing and developing, cultivating wisdom. And over time, you develop your mind. So I wouldn't suggest to you to think about it as you took a step back or, anything like that. Instead, look at it as like this was an event that allowed you to see your mind and see how it functioned in this situation. And it was an opportunity for you to cultivate wisdom. And now in the future, when you're encountering that same situation, you would handle it differently based on this new wisdom that you have. And that's the name of the game, is to cultivate wisdom. And as long as you're cultivating wisdom, this is a success. Okay. I'm going to go to Joe, Paul, because it seems like our internet's still kind of patchy here. Maybe Joe or Adela. Go ahead, guys.
David, this is Adela. My question is around being impartial, especially when it comes to kids. We have 2 small kids. And I try to, whenever I buy one something, like tennis shoes, t-shirts, whatever it is, I try to buy the other kid something as well, just to keep it like equal, because they're kids, they get jealous and they don't know to really handle that jealousy as well. Mm-hmm. But some would, I guess I have family members who would argue that maybe I'm teaching them to expect something every time I get, I'm kid something, and then they're going to get even more frustrated if I buy one something and then don't buy the other something. I'm teaching them to have higher expectations, I guess, and not to manage their jealousy.
Well, if their mind stays wired to the point where it is getting jealous, then their mind's going to keep dwelling in that, and it's going to keep staying wired that way. So by you early in their life, because I think your kids are pretty young, if I remember correctly, they're like in the 5 to 8 age range, maybe even younger than that. While they're young like this, you can do the way that you're doing. And then as they get older and you start teaching them about craving, desire, attachment, you start teaching them about impermanence and things like that, that's where you can then start to do things differently. Maybe by the time they're 10 or 12 or 13, you might do things differently, where sometimes you buy one thing and you don't buy the other one, something else. But early on in life like this, while their mind doesn't have this wisdom, it's wise to not allow their mind to form the jealousy, because then it's just going to stay wired that way. I'll tell you an example of this that will make a lot of sense for you. When my son was born, we did something that the Thai people usually do here, which is they have these little bracelets that you put on their ankles. I guess they call it an anklet or something. And it has like a little bell on it. And you put it on both of their ankles. And you usually put them on when they're somewhere around 3 months old or something like that. And you put it on their ankles. And when they're in their crib and they wake up, like say you're out of the room and they wake up, you'll start hearing their little bells jingle as they're starting to wake up, because they're starting to move around. They haven't completely woken up yet, but they're just starting to move around, and you know they're getting ready to wake up. And now what they learn is that when the parents hear the little jingling of the bells, the parents will come, and now that will pick them up out of the crib or pick them up from wherever they are. So they learn how to jingle their bells for their parents to come rather than cry. Because what we typically experience in the West is that the child just stays there and then the parents don't come until they cry. So the children learn that if I cry, I get the attention of my parents, where our son never did that. He hardly ever cried growing up as a child, in his infancy, as a toddler. This child hardly ever cried. And this is attributed to his little bells. And you'll see that here if you ever come to Thailand, that children typically aren't crying, they aren't upset, and these kinds of things, because they have these different things that they understand, that if you allow your child to wake up and cry and get angry and frustrated, and that's how they're getting their parents' attention, not only will they do that as an infant and a toddler as they're waking up, but they'll also do it during their day-to-day life too, that they'll cry and try to get their parents' attention, because their mind's being wired that way. It's being conditioned to understand that crying equals I get mom and dad's attention. So it's the same kind of thing with this jealousy, that early in life like this, if you allow their mind to get jealous when they don't have the wisdom to understand how to process that experience of one child gets something and the other child doesn't, then their mind's going to stay wired that way. So early on in their life like this, by you doing it this way, it's actually going to help them to not form jealousy in their mind. It's not going to get conditioned that way. And then later on, you can teach them the wisdom of this path about impermanence and craving, desire, attachment, and then they won't experience that jealousy. You'll be able to teach them about sympathetic joy and all these other things. But in my opinion, what you're doing is actually wise, because by the time I was probably 12 or 13, Grandma didn't give me presents anymore when my sister had birthdays. And I understood, and I was fine with that. I didn't get jealous when she had her birthday and she got a gift and I didn't. But early on, when we were very young, the mind didn't understand that. So that's what I would recommend for you. And be able to see the truth in that for yourself and know what's wise. And just because your family's telling you that you should do it a different way, you need to be able to see the wisdom and make the decisions that you know that is wise, rather than just rely on what somebody else is telling you, including me, right? Don't just rely on what I'm sharing. Reflect on what I'm sharing, practice what I'm sharing, and then see the truth for yourself.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't see Paul has come back, I don't think. Yeah, I don't see Paul anywhere. Oh, there's Paul. Would you like to continue, Paul, or did you get what you needed?
Well, I don't want to tie things up because obviously my internet is not very reliable. I'm not at home right now. So, but I guess if I can say this much is that, I made a choice yesterday not apply right effort. To me, that's the big mistake. How do you get past when you're so stubborn and so conditioned to be mad and frustrated. And you say, I'm aware, I'm me.
Lost you again, Paul. Can you hear me?
That's what I was referring to.
Your question is, how do you overcome this, right? You're frozen up again. Okay, I'm going to keep going, Paul, and then I'll circle back and see if we can get you. Okay, there, you're back now. Okay, let's see if we can get you. Your question was how to overcome this, right?
That's how to overcome the stubbornness of choosing not to.
Okay.
Action.
So this is the practice, right? This is where you don't beat yourself up that you didn't practice perfectly in that experience. You look at it and you're like, there's some work to do here. Next time, I'm going to handle this better. And now you've cultivated that wisdom to next time do it better. The Eightfold Path is what's going to help you to do that. So by accumulating the benefits of breathing mindfulness meditation and practicing generosity and all the other things that you learned as part of the Eightfold Path, by being committed to that, and being diligent to regularly practice it, over time, you will come up to that level more and more. But between now and enlightenment, you're going to have plenty of missteps. You're not going to be perfect. You can't just snap your fingers and instantly implement these teachings. So in the situations where your mind has fallen short of the goal, just take note of that, look at that, cultivate wisdom where you need to, do like you're doing now, which is get help from a teacher, somebody that can help you, and then just aim to do better next time. But you need to keep the consistent practice of the Eightfold Path, because you're already starting to notice you didn't have mindfulness and you didn't apply right effort. So now you know that you need to do better with that next time. So now you practice and improve that next time with this new wisdom that you have to be more diligent in that situation. But, I don't think you've said this, but, no need to feel guilty or shameful or beat yourself up about this or feel like somehow you've done something wrong. Just instead realize like this is where your mind is now, and it's not where you would ultimately like to be, but you just gradually work your way towards that. Okay?
Hey, David, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So these are the Brahma-viharas: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. You're starting to maybe understand what these qualities are and the symptoms that they're antidoting. And this is the 4 healthy mental states, or the Brahma-viharas. And this is what I talk about in this chapter 14. But I also added something into this chapter 14 that helps you guys to understand this other mental quality that isn't part of the Brahma-viharas, but it is a healthy mental state. And you're going to need to cultivate this healthy mental state in your practice as well. And we've talked about it at different times during this program, but I've included it here in chapter 14 as well because it's so important to your progress on the path to enlightenment. You're going to need to practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. Because what the mind's going to do when it has craving, desire, attachment is it's going to hold on to things, and the mind's going to become quite selfish. It's like, if I spend 3 hours doing that, I want this in return. And if I spend 3 days doing that, I want this in return. That's what the mind's going to do. It's going to hold on my food, my money, my clothes, my jewelry, right? And now it's my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my this, my that. And now your mind is going to be craving that permanence, and it's unwilling to let go. So your breathing mindfulness meditation is training your mind to let go, but so is your generosity, or your giving and sharing. And you need to be able to do that without any expectation of anything in return, and integrate this into your life where it is pretty straightforward and pretty easy for you. So for example, if I was going to the market to buy myself some pineapple, and while I'm there, I happen to see some avocados, and I know that my wife likes avocados, I'll take the extra 1 minute or 2 minutes to get the avocados and bring them home for my wife and say, here you go, without any expectation of anything in return. Or I might do that for my neighbor, or me even here. Sometimes I bring stuff in here to share with you guys, right? So you would like to integrate this generosity into your life where you don't have to spend 3 hours driving in the opposite direction just to get that candy bar and bring it to your friend or your family member or something like that. You're already at the store. You're already buying something for yourself. Include a couple extra candy bars for other people that you can then share with other people. Or you go to the store and you get a bag of potato chips and you open it up and there's a couple of friends around. You can send that bag of potato chips around, and if it comes back to you and there's only one potato chip in there, well, just go buy another bag, right? No big deal. Or say you're going into a store and you notice there's someone behind you. You can hold the door for them and let them go in, right? This is an easy way to practice generosity. But you need to be sure you're doing this without any expectation of anything in return. Because if you're standing there expecting them to say thank you, and they walk through the door and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. You'll be agitated because you have an expectation. You're wanting something from this person. Your generosity needs to be without any expectation of anything in return, not even a thank you. Because of impermanence, not everyone's going to say thank you when they walk through the door. I can tell you that right now, right? Some people are going to walk through the door and they're going to say thank you. And maybe that's what you do when you walk through a door. But some people are going to be so engrossed in what they're trying to get out of the store, they're not even seeing you stand there. They don't even know that you're standing there. Or they might even just look you in the eyes and just not even register that it would be wise to say thank you. But if your mind craves everybody to say thank you, that's permanence. And you're actually not practicing pure generosity at that point. You still have a craving. You still have an expectation. You still have a want. So you need to integrate this generosity into your life where you're frequently practicing generosity. Frequency is more important than the amount. That you should be practicing generosity on a daily basis. So for example, if you were going to give $500 once a year to an orphanage, that's not going to have as much benefit as if you gave $1 a day. Because $1 a day, each day, you're having to let go of your money. You're having to let go. But if you only do it once a year, that $500 isn't going to have the same impact as doing it every single day. Whenever you're noticing that you're discontent, you can look to see the generosity wherever you see a craving. So let's just say you get your clothes out of the washing machine and they're ripped and torn, and you see that you're angry and frustrated about that. Well, you need to start practicing generosity with your clothing. Start giving it away to people, or start letting people share it. Or if you notice that you misplaced your jewelry, and then your mind's all shaken up by that, you can see that your mind's craving, wanting this jewelry to be permanent. So if you can give it away, great, but it might be too expensive to give away. So maybe you let somebody use it. Somebody like a family member or a friend, they can wear your jewelry for a period of time. If you're noticing that you're holding on to your money, that when your bank account's up here, you're happy, and when it goes down here, you're sad or frustrated, you're going to need to start sharing your money with other people. That's why, like places here in Thailand, you typically see a lot of donation boxes around in stores and restaurants and stuff like that, because it gives you an opportunity to put 10 baht, 20 baht, 10 baht, 20 baht. So if you're going to give 100 baht, which for those of you guys online, that's about $3. If you're going to give $3 a day, which is 100 baht, you might put 10 baht, 20 baht, 10 baht, 20 baht. So 3, 4, 5, 6 times during your day, you're having to let go, let go, let go, let go. This frequency is going to be more important to you than the amount. You'll see that frequency is going to help train your mind to let go, where you can be joyful in giving and sharing with other people and live open-handedly instead of holding on to things really tight. That's going to train your mind to let go. And that's what's going to help you eliminate all your discontentedness. There's other aspects to this path, but generosity is an important part of it. So that's why I put that in here in this chapter, because it's a healthy mental state that you're going to need to cultivate. And you need to do this without any expectation of anything in return. So any questions here on generosity? Looks like Leo has a question.
I think you can fall back if you, for example, if you do a lot of generosity, but after maybe then you do it for 1 week not. Would you say that you're falling back quite strong?
That if you practice generosity for 1 week, you said?
If I do it for a while, like maybe for a year,
okay,
but then for some reason I don't do it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, how detrimental is it for the mind?
As long as you have a consistent long-term practice of generosity, that's what's important. Right? If you choose to not practice generosity for a period of time, then that's a choice for you, because even your generosity, you need to practice from the middle way. Because if you gave excessively you wouldn't have the resources you need to be able to sustain your life. But if you never gave and helped people and shared your time, effort, energy, and resources, your mind would be quite selfish. So you're going to need to find the middle way and then navigate that, right? At different times, you're going to be able to maybe share more or less. So there's periods of time where I tip the waiters and people who serve me food and taxi drivers and things like that. But there's also times where I don't tip because I don't really have much money during that period of time. So there's no harm in you choosing not to practice generosity in a given situation. But over the course of years, you need to practice generosity, but do it from the middle way where you're not doing it excessively, but you're not choosing to never do it either. But remember also, generosity is your time, effort, energy, and resources. It's not just money. You can share your time. You walk out of your house in the morning and you see your neighbor's trash is blown all over the yard. Well, maybe they're not even home. Maybe they're on vacation, and you just go take 5 minutes to clean up the trash in their yard, and you don't even tell them about it. Right? Because you're not expecting anything back from them. You just put it away in the side of their house. And now this is something that you can do. So you would like to be practicing generosity frequently, daily. The Buddha talked about it as a daily practice. Be looking for a way to practice generosity. Like I noticed when you went up and got microphones, you brought over some microphones for them too. That's generosity, right? A very simple thing took you an extra 3 seconds, right? To go over there and give them that microphone. That's generosity, right? And that's what you would like to be able to do on a regular basis. And you should be able to do that consistently throughout your days and weeks and months and years. We have some more questions coming in here, guys.
Is it working? Yes. What is the correct way of accepting generosity? Because I think most of the time I don't have issue with showing generosity, but receiving it, I always feel very uneasy, almost thinking, you shouldn't have done that and do that. And I feel bad inside for the person being generous to me.
Okay.
Should I maybe practice more kindness meditation towards myself, or I don't know?
The Buddha teaches you that when someone practices generosity with you, it would be wise for you to accept it because it's enhancing the quality of that person's mind. Right. And if you were to reject their generosity, they don't get a chance to enhance the quality of their mind. And if you do that enough where you're shutting people down, eventually people will stop practicing generosity with you. So you would like to get to the point where you're accepting people's generosity because there's some craving in your mind that's hindering you from being able to do that. Maybe you feel like you're being perceived as someone who's needy or something like this, and you don't feel comfortable to accept someone's generosity. This is part of what we call personal existence view, which you're going to learn about this week in the class, Monday through Friday. So accepting someone's generosity is wise, but the teachings of the Buddha aren't black and white, right? Because if someone offered you crystal methamphetamine or heroin, you're not going to accept that, right? So this is where you need to move to your higher consciousness, and you need to think through, would it be wise for me to accept this or not? Even if it's like a sweater and you're never going to wear this sweater ever, the Buddha teaches you to still accept it. But then what you can do is you can offer it to somebody else, right? And just give it to somebody else. But if someone was going to give you illegal drugs, you're not going to, or even legal drugs, you're not going to accept that because you're not interested in accepting those kinds of things. So you just need to figure out what's the craving that's hindering you from accepting someone's generosity. There's some kind of craving, desire, attachment that's producing that discomfort in the mind. And I suspect what it might be is you might feel like you're appearing to be needy, because I used to have this too. When people used to offer me things, I wasn't comfortable accepting their offering, and I felt like, what do they think? I don't have money? Do they think I don't have food? Like, what do I look like? Do I look like someone who's poor? This is called personal existence view. But if you use your mindfulness to look inward and see what is the craving, then you'll be able to more easily eliminate it, to be able to not experience that discomfort any longer. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do is just end here by thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to grow on the path to enlightenment. Thank you everyone online for your questions and your interest to grow. Next week, we're going to be in chapter 15, which is titled True Love, Love Without Attachment. This is where you're going to learn what true love is, because most people, they actually don't understand what true love is, and they're not practicing true love. And this is why they have difficulties and struggles struggles in their relationships. And this is why you might have broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship. So we're going to talk about true love without attachment, where you can love all beings. And now by you practicing that, you'll experience more and more love in your day-to-day life because you're actually practicing true love. Because if you're not practicing true love, you won't receive true love back. And then for those of you guys that are here, Monday through Friday this week, you know that we have the course. And then on Wednesday, we have our regular meditation. On Fridays, we have our social event where we come together at 6 p.m. to have like a little party, a little gathering together. So you guys are welcome to attend any of these events. You'll find them on our bulletin board. You'll also find it on our website as well. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow. And perhaps I'll see you guys in the future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.